guys, welcome back. So we are still on the concept of saving. Remember, the big idea here or the big question to you is, how are some people successful? Have you ever even given that a thought? Also, how do you then want to manage your money? And I made a scenario to say, let's say right now you win 10,000 rands, maybe on a certain competition that they are playing, maybe on radio or somewhere, any competition for that matter. At school, you have a competition and you win 5,000 or 10,000. How would you manage that 10,000? Have you ever given that a thought? Or I will just say it as it comes. Is it one of those things? Because really, you need to know what is it that you're going to do with your money. Whether it is 10,000, whether it's 5,000, whether it's just 500, you definitely need to know what you're going to do with your money. So that's one of the things that I need you to be thinking about as we are continuing. Right now, we're going to then look at a few options of what it means to save. And we're going to look at some calculations just to see what it means when somebody says, I am saving money. And then also think about how do we then determine what is it that is going to be their payout after a certain duration of time. So let's just jump right into it. Now, our big idea, remember, is still growth. We're still looking at patterns. And with our patterns, we're looking at simple, compound, and random. Now, one thing that you also need to be thinking about is how you can identify what equation to use when answering a question on savings. So when the question is being given to you in terms of savings, how do you then determine which formula or which equation to use? What are the key words? Like, for example, if I say to you, I'm opening an investment account and I'm depositing a fixed amount of money of 10,000. And the interest is given to me as 10% per annum, and I leave it there. What does that tell you? How can you then analyze that and scaffold that question such that it tells you which formula to use? That's what I'm asking you here. Also, these keywords that we are looking for, what exactly are they? So for example, things like if they mention simple interest, does that give you a clue? When they mention compound interest, does that give you a clue? When they mention things like inflation, does that give you a clue as to what exactly is it that you need to do? When they talk about things like the exchange rate, does that give you a clue on what exactly you will need to do there? So those are things that you just need to be thinking about when you are trying to answer questions that have to do with savings. All right, so following those keywords, let's just then try and answer a question or look at a question and see exactly what this means. Now, 5 years ago, a certain amount of money was invested in a bank. The value of the investment is currently sitting on 200,000, right? So this was 5 years ago. Now, already from here, guys, you need to be thinking about what they want you to do clearly would be you wanting to find what was the original amount, or what was the initial amount, or what was the principal amount if we use the proper terms, right? That was invested such that at this present moment, we then have 200,000 in the bank. Really, who wouldn't want to have 200,000? But then that's besides the point. So the key words here is, this is 5 years ago, meaning the duration of the investment was 5 years. So already we're thinking about, okay, this was 5 years, right? And this investment that we had, which we do not know how much we started it with, it then grew to be 200,000. So the value of A is 200,000. And then we need to be then looking at, in that scenario that I just read now, are they telling us whether this is simple interest or compound interest? No, we do not know. So we need to also investigate further and see what exactly is it that we need to be doing. So let's just have a look at this. So they say, calculate the original amount if the interest rate was 5% per annum, simple interest. You see, now the very big thing here is Now they are telling us that this is simple interest. So already from the previous slide that I had asking you whether you know which formula to use, already here they're saying simple interest at the end. It is giving you an idea now as to which formula is it that you must lean over so that you can answer this question. Now, our big idea, remember, is still simple interest. And then the equation for simple interest that we will need to use to answer that question will be as the one you are seeing on the screen now, which is A is equals to P into 1 plus I multiplied by N, right? Where the A would be the accumulated amount. So this is what the future value is, right? The future value meaning what is it that we have now? Because according to this question, the now is the future because the investment started 5 years ago. And then the principal value would then be the PV as well, which I can call the present value, which was what the person started with 5 years ago. The interest is the 5%. Now, already, if we look at what is it that we want to do here, remember A is the 200,000. And then since this is simple interest, my formula is going to be A is equals to P into 1 plus I multiplied by N, right? And the big thing that I'm trying to find here is the value of P. How much did I start the investment with so that I get to the 200,000 after 5 years' time? And this was at an interest rate of 5%, so that's 0.05 multiplied by the 5 years, because this was for 5 years. And then we'll just go to our calculator and calculate this. So remember, our amount is 200,000. We're going to divide this with the whole bracket that I have there. Now, I know that most of the time we want to start with brackets. After all, that's what BODMAS says you must do. Start with brackets, go outside the brackets, then you divide, then you multiply, and all of those things. But with financial maths, I must caution you against that. Try by all means to do everything as a collective. Why? Because whenever you are calculating and you start rounding off your answer in the duration or in the process of you calculating, I promise you, your final answer is going to be very different from what the final answer is supposed to be. It might be off by a couple of rands, it might be off by a couple of decimals, but you need to make sure that you do not round off until you get to the final answer. That is a big thing. I promise you, as you are progressing with financial maths, you will see that as soon as you round off, it makes your final answer to be incorrect, because now you are no longer using the original amounts that you are busy getting as you are calculating. Now you are using rounded off answers, which is then a problem. So try not to round off until you get to the final answer. Now, I'm just going to divide with the whole bracket as is. So that's 1 plus 0.05 multiplied by the 5. I close the bracket, then I find my answer. So the investment amount was 160,000. So this was P is equals to 160,000. And then what will you then do from here? You will then say, therefore, the original amount was 160,000. So you will need to conclude, because we are talking about money. And remember, the question said, what was the original amount? It is not the same as me just saying calculate. If I say what was the original amount, it means that you need to conclude and tell me that this was the original amount. Now, how long would it then take for an investment of 40,000 to increase by 5,000? Now, let's look at what they're saying. A very beautiful question indeed. Increase by 5,000. What is the 5,000? The 5,000 is the increment of the 40,000. And now what you will need to understand is the 5,000 is a once-off increase. So it means you started your investment with 40,000, and then when you take out your investment, you take it out as 45,000. That's what the increase by 5,000 means. And the interest that was given to you was 4.5% per annum, and this was on a simple interest basis. So already I know that it means that my P will already be given there, but the big idea here will be the A value, which must be the 45,000, and then you can then start calculating from there. So please make sure that you understand that. Now, have you thought about, firstly, what equation will I then use on this particular question that I just got now, right? What was the keyword? So if I go back to the question and look at the question, what was the keyword here that tells me which formula to use? That's what you need to be thinking about as you are solving the question, right? And then also, that keyword that we just did now, which equation is it then giving you the right to use according to that keyword? Now, the keyword has been simple interest, which has been the big thing that we've been doing. Now, they want us to find the value of n. So, remember the formula is A. You always start with the formula, guys, please. A is equals to P1 plus I multiplied by n, right? And our big thing here that we are trying to do is to find what the value of n is. That is multiplied by. So we are trying to find what the value of n is. Our value of A we know is 45,000, and the value of P is 40,000, and 1 plus my interest was 4.5, so that makes it 0.045 divided by divided by 100, so I don't really need to include the divide there, and I must multiply this by n. Look at me, I'm already thinking compound interest now. So multiply this by n, which is what we are trying to find. So I'm gonna go back to my calculator. So it's 45,000. So firstly, I will divide both sides by the 40,000 to get rid of it, so that I can only have the bracket on its own. Remember, that's the big idea. The big idea when you are solving is you must get the variable to be on its own. So I'm going to divide this by 40,000, and my answer will be 9/8, right? So you can see this is 1,125. Now, one mistake that we normally make when we get to this is when we get to the calculation, or when we write down our steps, we then write this as 1,13, which is not incorrect, because that's what it is on a rounded off scale. But financial maths does not allow us to round it off. We would need to use it as 1,125 as is. And therefore, I have 1,125 is equals to 1 plus the 0,045 multiplied by n. I don't need the brackets anymore because there is nothing outside the bracket. Then I will subtract 1 on both sides, making this to be 0,125 is equals to 0,045 multiplied by n. Remember, if I'm trying to get the variable on its own and it has a coefficient, I will then need to divide both sides by the coefficient. So let's just quickly do that. Remember, we started first by minusing 1, and that was our answer there. And then you divide this by the 0,045, and that will give us 2.78%, right? So n will actually be 2.78, but we will need to round this off to the nearest, right, so that we get the answer. So my n will then be equals to 3 years, or you can say 2 years and a couple of months after that. That's how long it will take this thing to actually grow there. So that's the big idea there. Now, in all of what we've just done right now, guys, is the main thing that we're looking at is how do I know which formula to use? What tells me or what informs me to use that formula? What are the keywords? How do I see the keywords? How do I then differentiate between a keyword saying this and a keyword saying that? And also, what exactly is it that that keyword is telling me with respect to the kind of calculation that I need to do? Do I just need to multiply by the interest and get the value, or do I need to actually use an actual formula? So those are the things that you need to be thinking about as you are trying to solve this. But I hope so far you are enjoying and everything is a bit clearer now in terms of what it means to have a savings account or what it means to save. I will be back with some more. Stay tuned. Let's just go to a quick ad break.